survive, thrive, stay alive. It's time to get prepared with the Prepping Academy podcast.
All right, welcome to the Prepping Academy podcast. I am Forrest. I have a first time, a new co-host, relaunching the show. We'll be talking about that, but I just want to introduce everyone. A good friend of mine. He is part of the Charlotte Preppernet group, and he goes by UncleBuck. Everyone has these cool names except me. I go by my real name, but UncleBuck, are you on here with me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hear you loud and clear. Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Oh yeah, so UncleBuck, everyone, is going to be my co-host. One day we'll probably take over the show and go against the big dogs. But just to tell everybody kind of how this happened, I wanted to relaunch the show in 2023 because we're getting ready to do a lot of amazing things with Preppernet, and I want to launch the Prepping Academy show. And so Beth, one of the ladies that helps me with Preppernet, we were talking, and I said, "What about UncleBuck?" And she goes, "He is perfect." And so then we went to a meetup one night, and I stood up and was in the back, and UncleBuck came and stood beside me. I said, "UncleBuck, I want you to be my co-host on the podcast. I want you to go home, think about it, pray about it, and let me know what you think." And I think you turned to me and said, "Yeah, let's do it."
Let's go. Let's make it happen.
And I'm like, "Oh no, go home, think of it." He goes, No, I've been thinking about it. It's good. Yeah, that's sounds good. And you were telling me how it was kind of fitting with some of the things you want to do in 2003 yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's it was just serendipitous timing, I suppose, right? Is the right word. But I was thinking about just the whole preparedness games, where we're at in the world, what is going on, trying to make sense of it. And then how could I deploy the skills, talents, abilities that I've learned over the last couple decades in entrepreneurship, in business, in the military, like Boy Scouts. I mean, how do I start bringing all that stuff to the preparedness world and start helping as best I possibly can? And I don't have all the answers. I mean, I for sure do not have all the answers. There's a lot I need to learn. But I feel like right now, like I'm on a fast track to learn, consume, do, and just apply and just be as prepared as we can with the craziness that's going on in the world, and not just craziness in the world, just basic stuff, cold streaks where power goes out, folks shooting at substations like we just had in Fayetteville, North Carolina. People were without power for 5 days. What do you do about that? Are you prepared? I look at it more like business continuity, right? Like business continuity planning for like one of the banks or something like that. What happens if you get a scenario happens, and then how do you inject a PACE plan, a primary, alternative, contingent, and emergency plan to get you through the tough time?
Yeah. So, and I knew you would be a good fit. We're both type A personalities, but that's perfect because before long, I'm going to be really busy. And I think I told you that. And
yep.
you may be interviewing some people, doing some stuff on your own, but just if it's your first time, Prepping Academy has been on for like, I think 4 or 5 years. It's been sporadic. I've had one of my co-hosts, his name was Kyle. Then I had Tenderfoot, and we've had listeners around the world. And when I say listeners around the world, I went and looked at some of the statistics today from the United States, Canada, Austria, Australia, Germany, Sweden, Netherlands, Brazil, South Africa. I mean, around the world, people have listened to our podcast. And we had a good size following. And then COVID came, and I got really busy and with some stuff with Sun Oven, and it just kind of wasn't a priority for me anymore. But in the back of my mind, in my heart, I knew I needed to relaunch this. And I've been waiting because I didn't want to relaunch something and it just fail again or just die, and I get too busy. But now I found the man. I found the man.
We'll see. Yeah, I for sure think, and we'll talk. I know we got our next episode where we'll talk a little bit about goal settings, but I got some goals for this podcast and numbers to hit. Right now, that number's 50. Right, hit 50 podcasts this year. So that's essentially one a week, right? With maybe a couple weeks off,
Yep.
holidays, things happen. But I think that's the big bogey to hit this year, and I think it's doable.
So this is your first time with Prepping Academy as a host. Introduce the world. I mean, who are you? I mean, you got this crazy UncleBuck name. I mean, and just who are you?
Yeah. So, goodness, where do I even begin on this one? I'll kind of dovetail this in how I ended up getting with PrepperNet to begin with, which was a year ago. Actually, yeah, about a year ago, this January of 2022 is when I started getting plugged in with PrepperNet. So prior to that, I kind of grew up small little town in Michigan, very blue collared, and went to school, did all that fun stuff, went to corporate banking, moved to North Carolina, and just started working corporate professional type work. Always had the itch to join the Navy. I actually almost went into the Air Force right after 9/11. I graduated in May 2002 with my undergrad. So thankfully, I almost quit school a semester shy of graduating, and was going to join the Air Force and just go in as an E3 and just help with the fight. Long line of military in my family. My dad was a sniper in the Army. Uncle was infantry in the Army, both during Vietnam. My grandfather was on a frigate during World War II. And I got a stepbrother that retired out from the Air Force out of Kirkland Air Force Base out of New Mexico. So it's just kind of been in the blood. Graduated, started working corporate, and I just it's like these weird things that kept occurring that I would just meet these people that would come into my life where they would say, "Hey, you really should go join the military. You'd be great in the military." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." I'd go and I'd talk to some folks and recruiters, and it just, something didn't jive right. Something just didn't fit. And so this went on literally for over a decade. I mean, it went on for a decade, and just new people kept coming in and out of my life. And then at the ripe age of 36, I was married at the time. I think my wife might have been, I think she might've been pregnant. And I'm like, I'm joining the Navy. I'm going in. So I went in the reserve side. I was like, I want to be a supply officer, which is essentially the business arm of the military, right? It's operations, finance, contracting, getting people equipment from point A to point B. So I threw my name in the hat, went through that long, arduous process, and got selected, picked up, commissioned as an ensign. Went through a bunch of training classes, training school over the last 8 years. Mobilizations, mobilized overseas in the Middle East for a year. So that happens on the reserve side. Actually, it happens quite frequently, depending upon your rate. And then recently got out about a year ago. Although in the last 48 hours, with a lot of chatter that's going on right now, I've been reached out about potentially even going back in on the reserve side. So I don't know what's going to happen. That's been like the last 48 hour. And the reason, the whole rationale that I got out is because of the vax mandate, right? That was just not something, intuition, God, the voice, whatever you want to call it. I had gone through multiple roles within the Navy. It was loving it, right? Having a great time. I mean, just, it's phenomenal, great leadership experience. Got to lead, got to run and gun with just awesome people, and ended up getting the opportunity to be the special events commander for the 59th presidential inauguration, which is Joe Biden, right? So was out in DC for, I don't know, 5 months or so, helping plan and coordinate that. Super stressful, crazy stressful. I had an awesome team. And then that it ended up springboarding me. This is all on the reserve side too, and you're getting these active duty times, so it definitely strains. It strains household. It strains your civilian career. It's a tough balance. I mean, it certainly causes a lot of stress. So did the inauguration, finished that up, and then got an opportunity to interview for a Navy Special Warfare. So one of the SEAL teams to be a logistical support officer. Ended up going through the interview process, got a call, said I came in second. I wasn't the guy. I was number 2 because I didn't have a warfare pin. And the reason I wanted to go to SEAL team was so I could get the warfare pin, because you got to be at a certain billet or a certain role to actually even go through the process. So I was like, all right, well, I swung for the fences, didn't get it. About 3 weeks after that, this was, I think, June of 2021. I get an email saying, hey, congratulations, you have new orders. I go and I log in, open it up, look, and I'm like, welcome to the team. So you're going to be part of logistical support unit. I'm like, I call my buddy. I'm like, what happened? I was like, you said I didn't get it. Like, what's going on? And he said, yeah, it went up to the powers that be, and they shifted the other guy somewhere else, and they put me in this role. So I was super fired up, really excited. And then the mandate came down, and I just, for whatever reason, I was like, well, I already had COVID. I already had this stuff. I mean, I'm giving you the long story, man. Do you really want this long story? This is
no, this is good. I'm writing the book right now. UncleBuck.
But so essentially I spent my 6 months, right? I finished December 28th of 2021. I ultimately ended up resigning my commission. That process, I mean, it was super stressful. All I wanted to do was stay in and do my role. It was a lot of hoops to jump through. It was very unfortunate. And my case ended up, we were on some different chats, right? This wasn't just me that had issues with this. This was thousands and thousands of people. There's a lot of people. And my case got picked up by a congressman out of Capitol Hill. So I had to send them a bunch of just kind of what happened. Like they just started hearing similar folks that had the same story. And they were just kind of feeling like they were getting pushed out or being forced to resign commission. Because at the time they were talking about, you're going to get dishonorable discharge, right? That was literally on the table. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, I'm not going out dishonorably. There's no way. Not with all the stuff that I've done. It's not happening. So if I got to go out on my own terms, then I guess I'll have to go out on my own terms, and I'll have to resign my commission. So that's what I did. My CO, who was he was a SEAL team guy as well, he ended up getting Forrest retired out. They pushed him out. So it was very, very just a weird time. Looking back at it, I'm like, I mean, maybe if you're senior leaders, maybe you made the same calls with that information that you had, which was pretty limited at the time. I don't know, right? Like it could have gone a bunch of different ways. You can dissect it all you want. But that was the decision I made. So, right. Very reluctant, didn't want to do it. And then just that this is late 2021. So I finished December 28, 2021. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, I gotta I want to still do stuff. I still want to grow. I was looking forward to like combat skills trainings with the SEALs teams. I'm like, well, what else can I get into now? Cause now I got all this free time. So, Kyle, who was, the chiropractor, Kyle, right. That okay. He recommended you and said, hey, a lot of just the world's kind of weird right now. So, getting skilled up and learning new things, check out this Preparedness. So that's how I showed up, right? I showed up and my expectation was it was way better than I anticipated. So I show up to Preparedness thinking we're going to get a bunch of just bubbas, right? It's going to be a bunch of bubbas there. And the one guy sitting next to me, I met, you're all right. He was an optometrist. We had retired intel officers. Mm-hmm. I was like, all right. These guys are, Beth worked at NASA. Like you got all these different folks that just bring in different skills and abilities to the table, which is really, really cool.
For the record, Beth thought you were like an FBI agent trying to infiltrate.
She did.
And that's why we had our lunch with you about a year ago, about 10 months ago. No, I don't think she did, but it was interesting. New guy comes just out of the military. asking questions. We're like, okay, you remember that lunch?
I do. I remember that. Yeah. I was like, I was just trying to figure this stuff out. I was coming out like I was kind of like just a fish out of water. I had a lot of my identity, part of my identity is in the military, and that kind of just went away like overnight. And I'm like,
Right.
all right, I feel awkward right now. But yeah, so far, it's been good. And then getting involved in PrepperNet and just skilling up and using that similar type mindset from the military, right? Situational awareness, developing a plan of action, doing any kind of analysis, all that type of work is right up my alley. It's what I do in civilian side as well. Run a lot of projects, run a lot of programs. So forward planning and worrying about problems that are trying to get ahead of problems before they actually occur. So I've been doing that now for a decade plus. Now just adding this preparedness at the household level with your basic necessities, food, water, shelter, clothing. Like, okay, how does this all fit? If there's a civil unrest, if we lose power, if there's an ice storm and it's 9 degrees outside and people are out of power for 2 days straight, right? Stuff like that happens. Like, how do you prepare for that stuff?
So, and just think 1 year later, you don't even need the shot anymore. To be in the military.
Yeah. So here's the ironic thing, right? So I literally was on, I ended up, was the White House, OIC, officer in charge for, and it sounds great. It wasn't that, a lot of the senior enlisted folks there that were active duty that did this stuff every single day. Those guys they just crushed it. They were awesome. So I did comms and was doing a lot of, communication back to our operations center. And I was at the White House when the president came through and, was reading out comms. And then the VPOTUS came through and went up the Eisenhower building, which is a separate building on the same White House ground property. And great experience. And then, you fast forward, I don't know, 3-4 months. It's not going to be mandated. It's not going to be mandated. The next month it's mandated. And then so I even went out and did the test, right? So I'm like, hey, I already had it. Like I'm confident I already had it. I took the test, 4-panel antibody test. I paid like $250-$300 for it. Get the results back. Said, dude, you already had this. Like it's already ripped through your body. And then I had the instructions which stated it's called BUMED instructions, which state if you can prove of prior infection via serological test, i.e. a blood test, you're medically exempt. I'm like, all right, well, this is not my rule. Like I didn't write this stuff. I'm just explaining, right. Here's the rule. Here's my result. Denied. I filed a religious exemption, denied. Started talking about the appeals process and they're like, you're going to get blanket denied. So, it was just, it's real stuff, right? People, I don't think it comes up as much in the media anymore, but it is still a fight going on right now. Class action lawsuits have occurred. And those are still ongoing. They'll probably work their way up to the Supreme Court. Who knows? It was super weird, like just super weird. And then now here am I at PrepperNet as a fake FBI agent,
getting ready to make it big. And I'm expecting at least a $10 million contract with what was the company that signed on Rogan? Was that
Spotify?
Spotify.
It was like 160 million. It was something ridiculous, right?
Ours is only going to be 10. So
all good.
I'm bringing in 1 million. You're bringing in 9 million in that. Yeah. And then Beth identified you as the FBI agents, and we had to have lunch with you and see what's going on. But you've been very involved in some of the PrepperNet things, and you're well liked. And so it all comes up to that night. I said, let me go ask them. And it was so shocking because I was like, okay, usually when you go to and ask someone a life-changing question, they'll go, let me go home and, pray about it, talk to my wife. You gave me the answer that night. And I was saying, hey, but you told me that you were thinking about getting into something like this. Anyway.
Yeah. So the, right. And I think, so I was, Let's see. There's just been a lot going on, right? The last 18 months has been a whirlwind. Like, I mean, I think spiritually with the military, with war, I mean, it's just been chaos, right? And like, I'm just talking about this from my perspective. I mean, it's impacted everybody everywhere, right? Like, it's been just crazy for everyone all over the world, right? And everybody's taken things differently, and some folks could process information, some folks couldn't, right? I mean, and you're seeing that manifest itself out now here in the world. But like what I was getting to the point where as we started attending our church, you know, for the last year and a half, and we had recently gained to the church, we got my wife baptized, my kids baptized, super like emotional experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I was literally coming off the hills of that. And I remember just sitting down and praying about it. I'm like, God, what do you want me to do? Like, I got this military thing on my mind. I got these other things that I'm thinking on, like directionally, where do you want me to go? And that was Tuesday. And then we met Thursday for the Christmas party. Right. And you ask, and I don't think I gave you an answer right away, but like in my mind, I'm like, yep.
I mean, within
like,
a couple hours. Yeah, you did.
I was good. I was like, I already knew. I was like, I didn't run it by my wife, didn't run it by. I'm like, no, I'm going. Like, we're going to go, and like, let's see what happens. I don't know where it goes. But we're going to go this direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I was pretty, in my prayer, I'm like, I need you to make it obvious, because I'm too thick skulled. Like, just make it just plain as day obvious. And that's what occurred.
Just to get the facts down. So you're saying I was literally a messenger from God? I'm kidding.
You might have been the push. You might have been the push. Like, yep, okay, here's the direction we're gonna go. I'm like, all right, cool.
That's awesome. So so once we've met, we've talked. I think this goes along with our goal, that I have in my life, you have in your life, and God has kind of put all this together, and we're moving forward. We're planning, we're doing the right things, and man, I look forward to doing many more shows with you, for sure.
Likewise, man.
And some of the things you want to talk about is some of the goals we want to do this year with PrepperNet. And man, you're a planner. I did take some notes before, but you're doing spreadsheets, you're doing algorithms. So I love that. I mean,
I'll change my name to Nerdy Prepper.
Well, how'd you get UncleBuck? I mean, tell us.
So UncleBuck, right? I mean, you spent time in the Air Force, right? Everybody gets you get a call sign. Typically, it's you do something really dumb and you get called this, or some spin on your name or something like that. So when I mobilized, this is 2018, went out to a small air base in the Middle East, and like that, everybody's call signs, right? Because we had a bunch of pilots out there. That's all they go by. It's pilot, call signs. And when you're doing comms, like you're not using your first and last name, right? It's you go by your alias, your whatever your call sign is. And folks just asked me one day, and I'm like, well, I'm a big John Candy fan. I love John Candy. I love UncleBuck, planes, trains, automobiles. I'm like, I'm just gonna go with UncleBuck. So there you go.
Yeah, I had when I was in the Air Force, I had one, but I never let it take hold outside the Air Force, because it's almost, I felt like it was kind of, if I told people, it sounded like arrogant. Because I was in comms, and I remember fixing, there was a brigadier general flying a C-130, and his yoke mic wouldn't work. And I remember I'm laying on the floor, rewiring the yoke mic while we're, 20,000 feet in the air. And Brigadier General is literally, if he sneezes on me, I'm catching all his sneeze down. You know what I'm talking about? Right down at the bottom where his
yeah. Yep.
And I'm wiring that, and I fixed it. And then one of our radios went offline, and I kid you not, and I don't know where I got this, but I usually have fuses. And one of the radios blew a fuse, and it kept blowing fuses, and I ran out. So I took juicy fruit gum wrapper and put it around the fuse, and then put it into the slot, thinking, hey, that would carry the current a lot better than a little filament that was inside the fuse. and it worked. And so people they call me McGarvin from the big show MacGyver. So you just don't go and tell people, hey, they call me McGarvin. So I never really did that. So that's why my name didn't I never used it after the military. So yeah, that was what everybody always called me. So
yeah. And so we'll see the last 48 hours. So through a lot of the guys that I know, they got out as well. They kind of went the same path as me, resigned their commission. They were all in reserves. And now this mandate has been lifted, part of the NDAA that the POTUS just signed into law, I think last week, a week and a half ago. And they have 30 days to essentially eliminate the mandate. So that's end of this month. It should be gone. And we've got reach outs. My buddy reached out. He's like, hey, I got a recruiter here. They're trying to bring it's called a Nav Vet program. They're trying to bring folks back in if you're interested in going. And I'm like, I don't know, right? Like, I don't know how I feel about it, right? Because I go back and forth with two different on it. Like, I could just say, no, you made your bed, lie in it and be bitter and, be a baby about it. The flip side is it's what's done is done. Like, bury it. Is there stuff that I could do and help? And because I was good at what I did. I mean, really good at what I did. But I don't know, right? Like, I'm having to just think about it, pray about it, and we'll see what paths emerge here over the next 30 days, and maybe go that path on the reserve side, so I can still keep doing podcasting and still keep civilian career going and manage household. I mean, as best as possible, but just keep that going. I don't know. We'll see what happens here in the next few weeks.
Well, I understand the dilemma: rich and famous or military. It's a dilemma for sure.
I don't know, man. It's I can do both, right? I mean, literally you can do both. It's just time management. It's just right. a lot more time management. But I don't know, man. I enjoy it. I certainly enjoy the time. I love my time in uniform. It's great, but I'm trying to.
I'm amazed you went in at 36. I don't think I've ever met someone that went in that old.
Yep. The average case. So there's a program called DCO. It's called Direct Commissioner Officer and Doctrine Course. So DCOIC. It's up in Newport, Rhode Island. So they effectively bring in a lot of professionals, right? Folks that have graduate degrees, went to business school, Juris Doctorate, nurses. We had a plastic surgeon in my class that was 55. So we go through and you go through boot camp. Like, you're going through boot camp as this working professional, and everybody that goes in there is already squared away. The average age in my class was 36. So our youngest guy was 25. He was the wrestling coach for the Naval Academy Preparatory School, which is right on essentially it's a 1-year program. It's like junior college before folks go into the Naval Academy. And then our oldest guy was, I think he was 55, 56, and did some kind of surgery. So plastics, very, very skilled at his role. And then lots of nurses, dentists, doctors, lawyers, like a lot of the business school folks, like so myself and some of the other ones, we're all going supply corps, because that's kind of the finance, the operations, the making stuff happen logistically. That was our world. So the average age was 36, and we were all squared away. I mean, we got smoked, I think, our first night. They beat us up pretty good. But then after that, it was, we're at 3:45 in the morning. Everybody's going to be dressed, ready, and be on the line, and we're ready to go. So as soon as our drill instructor came through and turned on the light, we were dialed in, like, let's go. And we still got smoked. It didn't matter. You know how it works.
Yes. Yep. So that's awesome. That's and now you're here today to share your wisdom and your talent, and you're with Preparedness. So that's been a blessing to us. Everyone's enjoyed getting to know you, and so tell us some of the goals that we're going to be doing with, or is that next show?
Probably next show we can go into a little bit more details on that one. I can talk high level. So
this show is all about you then.
It's just intro, right? It's the intro and the relaunch, and but go ahead, man.
No, you had.
Like the importance of prepping, right? Like
Uh-huh.
if anybody's picking this up and listening to it for the first time, like from your perspective, because your perspective, you got 20 plus years. I've done a lot of other stuff, but I wouldn't call myself like true kind of prepper. Like I would say you are, right? Up until like the last 18 months, but I've been like fast tracking it now. So we're coming at it from different angles. So from your perspective to the public, like what is the benefits? Like, why do it? Why do it to begin with?
Right. So I will say that, I'm going to treat this like no one here knows me. I've been prepping since Y2K. That's when I really started to wonder who's going to take care of my family when the crap hits the fan. And over the years, I've learned no one is. It's my responsibility. And I started a group in 2000. Right, 6 months within Y2K, we went over to the clocks. Fast forward, and we all survived. I started a group. I got 7 of my friends and their families, and said, we got to start a group. Don't know what it looks like, don't know what it's called, but we need to start it. So I was a closet prepper, just except with my group, for about 14 years. And gosh, 9 years ago, I started called the Carolina Prepper Network. We were in 2 states with about 9,000 members. We had to change the name because we were going nationwide, and now we got a little bit over 100,000 members. We're in 100 plus cities with meetings every single month, and prepping has changed. It's so weird because when I started, I didn't know what it was called. I just called it being prepared. Then the prepping, doomsday preppers came out, and all of a sudden, the idea of being prepared was generally lifted over America, meaning people are like, oh, what is this? And people started calling themselves preppers. And then once we watched all the shows, we're like, wait a second, we're not like them though.
Yeah.
They're the crazy ones. And then so we kind of distanced ourselves a little bit, and we're still fighting that battle of don't use the word prepper because everyone saw doomsday preppers. I'm so over that. It's about being prepared and being responsible for my family and what I'm called to do. And over the 9 years, PrepperNet has just grown, and so many friendships, but being ready. And so the biggest thing that's happened to us since really PrepperNet was started was the pandemic, of that word I'm not going to really say, but the pandemic came along, and it was so cool. As I'm talking to people, they're like, well, people going and buying food, they're buying toilet paper, and I was already there. I mean, I didn't have to go and buy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, and it kind of gives you confidence going, oh, so me putting back a little bit of extra toilet paper, having maybe a 3-month supply of toilet paper, versus just living week to week on toilet paper or month to month, and having extra food, that's paid off.
Mm-hmm.
And, when that started, we had no idea how big or small that was going to be, because we've read, the bubonic plague, all these things in the past. We had no idea. But it was so comforting to know that my family and my extended family and my survival group, we were ready. I mean, we were like, okay, is this it? And we focused more on getting the drugs that were readily available, even within months of Trump shutting down the borders. I had hydroxychloroquine. A few months after that, we got ivermectin, and we were ready. And so it really didn't affect us that much, except the best thing. I hate that people passed away, for sure. It was a terrible disaster. A lot of finger pointing will go on forever about that. But all of a sudden it raised awareness with all my friends that kind of made fun of me, or like, are you really into that? And they would say, do you not trust, do you not trust the Lord and all this kind of stuff? So I think it really changed a lot of people's minds, and with all the natural disasters in the past couple of years, and people are on this train of going, okay, it's not too crazy to have some food insurance, some money stored away, to be out of debt, to have some medical and band-aids and guns to protect your family. And all of a sudden it's becoming more mainstream. And that's why I think PrepperNet has just, we're going like crazy. We've got so many plans for coming up in 2003, but yeah, it's changed dramatically from the days. I remember when I told some of my friends that this was, I would say in 2014, when I started CPN, Carolina Prepper Network. I'm in a Bible study with some guys, and I said, guys, I got to confess something. I'm coming out of the closet. And they're like, what? And I said, well, I'm a ham radio operator. I'm a survival or a preparedness instructor or survival instructor. I got my Krav Maga apprentice, associate apprentice. Yeah, I'm a apprentice Krav Maga instructor and all these things. And they were looking at me like I was weird. And I was like, I just got to tell you, I've been doing this stuff. And then I told them why. And it's been a transformation in my life over the 23 years now. And a lot of my friends and families and I meet good people like you and Beth. And we did talk about the girls podcast too at some point, but it's been awesome. The growth has been amazing. I've bought businesses now in the kind of the preparedness industry. Sun Oven's one of them, which a lot of people have heard of. But yeah, it's transformed a lot of things in my life, and it's been awesome. I mean, what better confidence to know that you're prepared and you're ready for anything. In a sense, it's like in the military, be ready for anything. Always be prepared. That's a Boy Scout. So it's been great. It's been a great journey, and gosh, we got so many things yet we got to do.
Agreed. Time is not our friend, right? We gotta just go. We just got to go. So a lot of the stuff I talked about the Navy and my experience there, right? Like there was a lot of, when I was going through that, there's a lot of like guilt, man, like and shame, and just like I just felt like you almost felt like I was like on an island by myself, right? But there's a lot of aspects, and there was folks that a lot of folks felt like that. So when I say this stuff, right, like and folks listen to it on the podcast, right? I mean, I completely get there were folks that got injured, were killed, or died with it. I completely get that, and that's not I'm not making light of that in any stretch of the way. I just, from my perspective, given the physical shape that I was in, age, no comorbidities, I started like just doing my own research. I'm like, this is just, and it just didn't feel right. Like it just felt very forced. So that's that. So where the preparedness aspect though, right? What I'm seeing, and maybe you agree or disagree on it, but there seems to be like this fraction going on within the country, and it could even be planetary, where we got this one group that they're about self-reliance, right? They're about accountability. They're about getting after things and taking care of stuff. And then you got this other group they're always pointing at somebody else, right? It's the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. It's this person's fault. Somebody owes me something, right? And that group to me, like, it seems to like get a little bit bigger all the time. And that group is like, it kind of scares me a little bit, where I'm like, if anything happens, like you're SOL. I mean,
right.
That ability for self-reliance, and like even on a macro level, we were talked about a little bit before we went on, but like a macro level, look at what happened with COVID, right? Our supply chains got massively exposed, like massively exposed. We are so reliant on other countries, particularly China, to bring in textiles, to bring in parts, to bring in chips. microchips and semiconductors out of Taiwan. Something happens there. What happens to our vehicles, our cell phones? Like, there's just so many things. And even at the local level, right? We just had this big ice storm, and a giant oak tree came right down, knocked out power here all throughout our entire neighborhood. I think like 30% of the folks that were on the power line all out of power for hours. I'm ready to go, man. I'm like, Blackstone Grill, propane tank is ready to go. I'm cooking breakfast. It doesn't matter. I'm like, I got my little generators out. I'm like, all right, whatever. I mean, however long this takes, it takes. I'm like, I'm good to go. We're not missing the beat. The family's not missing the beat. We're just rolling on as business as usual. So those little things, it doesn't need to be like, oh my God, apocalyptic, end of the world, the aliens are invading kind of stuff, right? Which a lot of folks construe preppers are being prepared with. These guys all think aliens are going to attack, right? This is not at all. It's just basic stuff to take care of your family, be self-reliant. How do you take care of others and just be like a beacon of light and hope for other folks around you? In the event something does spiral out of control, we do have weird stuff that happens. Like, are you ready for it? That's it. And if you're not, listen to the show and you will start learning along the way.
Yeah. So in our show, we'll talk politics. We'll talk especially a lot of things with supply chain management. As you can see, that is probably one of our biggest threats in the near future. Mm-hmm. Is not being able to get supplies that you need for your car to be repaired. My niece, within the last couple of days, put out a text to everyone in the family. She has little kids about ibuprofen for children. Apparently, is very hard to get. Mm. And then we went through the baby formula issue.
Yep.
And so and I see in the future, and coming from my belief system as well, things are going to get more difficult monthly. We're going to have more disasters. We're going to have more supply chain management issues. Things are going to get harder, not easier. And so how do you get ready for that? Well, that's some of the things we'll be talking about on the Prepping Academy podcast. We'll be interviewing doctors, scientists, military experts, supply chain experts, and we'll get forecast of future things that we will bring awareness to so people can prepare. Mm-hmm. Also, skills that you need, things that you need to put back now that they're readily available. I mean, part of prepping is storing things and having things for the future, but prepping is also about having the skills and the knowledge to get through situations, to think through situations, and also, mindset. There are things that are going to happen, and you need to be able to understand, okay, I've read about this situation. I went back in history and saw how they treated this in Chile or Argentina or Zimbabwe, whatever. I've seen them go through hyperinflation. What can I learn from that the historical facts that came from that to help me and my family and my community not only survive, but thrive?
You're doing the opener right there.
Yeah.
Survive and thrive.
Survive and thrive. Because that's the case. That's the thing. I have means right now to buy things. My mind's clear. I'm learning things. I'm watching movies, reading books, getting knowledge in my head, seeing how people reacted throughout history in certain situations. And that's all going in to build my preparedness mindset. But it also gives you the confidence that you have that if I was driving through Buffalo, New York, and all of a sudden it dumps down 6 feet of snow, kind of like, it did up there, the confidence I have to get my family and myself through that, you can't take my confidence away. Like, that's knowledge and skills that I have.
Right. Yeah, it's great. That's great. So there's the military aspect, and you touch on some of it, right? It's the means, the method, and the mindset, right? The means, do you have the stuff? Do you have the water filters? Do you have the ability to make heat, extra food, extra toilet paper, whatever it happens to be? Do you have the method, right? Do you know how to use this stuff when it comes down to it? Are you going out in the field and field testing your water filter, or, you know, if you get into firearms, doing any kind of firearm instructions, anything like that? And then your mindset, like being dialed in, because there's a lot of folks there that miss that piece. And that's critical to keep you going, right? Because it doesn't matter how good of a plan you have, right? This is just a military thing too, right? Like we could do, you know, mission analysis, put together a whole plan. We do what's called a concept of operations, and then you do COAs, a course of actions. Doesn't matter how good you lay it out, right? Your opponent always gets a vote in your plan. Always, right. always. In preparedness, your opponent might be the weather. It might be, you know, a crazy driver on the road, civil unrest. You don't know, civil unrest. It could be something just crazy.
Oh, goodness. Okay, did you lose everything? Or
I don't know, man.
Or did I lose everything?
I don't know. It just vanished.
When the podcast, I'll just edit that out. But
so yeah, in short, there was there's a book that I read, all right, and this goes back to that fraction of America, and maybe even the globe at large, where you got one fraction are kind of the finger pointers, and you got the other ones that are self-reliant and accountable. But there was a book that I just finished up by Michael Easter. It's called The Comfort Crisis. I think I might have mentioned that to you maybe when we met, but really good book. It's about doing hard things. So if you ever follow like David Goggins, right? Ex-SEAL went through BUDS, I think 3 times. He got rolled back because he got injured twice, and he had to go through Hell Week essentially three separate times. But Comfort Crisis is all about doing hard things, right? Pushing your body, having stuff to push against. And that's where, like, I feel like we're failing right now. We just got soft. We got complacent. I mean, we got complacent in our local politics. We got complacent in our national politics. We're just complacent, right? We got fat, happy, and sloppy. So I'm like, well, let me start reading. I picked up another book on the Great Depression, right? It was kind of the fall, and then I think it said the fall and the rise of America. But it talks about the Roaring 20s and how folks were fat and happy, and, you know, they were doing the latest dance moves, and everybody had money, and their, you know, industry was growing. And then, you know, bank runs occurred, manufacturing shut down. You had 80% unemployment in Chicago, 25% unemployment in the country. And you had lots of civil unrest, right? I mean, folks camping out in Washington, D.C., folks getting into fights with the police. I mean, it got pretty bad there for a while. So that's 100 years ago, right? I mean, it's so, like, we forget that history when we just get lazy, right? We get complacent. You know, what becomes new ultimately becomes numb, and then you just kind of get lazy about it. So I feel like right now, like, my mindset going into this year is like, it's time to do hard stuff, right? Stuff that, like, makes me uncomfortable, right? And just keep going. I don't need to have it all figured out. There's a lot of aspects of preparedness that I don't have figured out, but I'm gonna push into this, and I'm only gonna get better. Like, I'm not gonna get worse. I mean, it's not gonna happen. I'll learn and adjust and figure things out. So I think that's a good mindset for anyone going in on really anything. Just push against hard stuff. Easy is not the answer.
Right. I agree with that. I'm reading Mike Pence's book right now, because I wanted to find out his story about, you know, the January 6th. But it's a good book. I'm really impressed. I'm becoming a fan of Mike Pence from the book, but I haven't got to the later chapters yet. So But yeah, so the hard stuff. And so if you put yourself like in the military, you train and condition, and you do exercises
Mhm.
and you practice what you've learned under stressful situations. And that way, when and you can probably verify this, when you're actually doing the real job in the real world situation, it's easy.
Mhm.
It's second nature. You have your manual, you go through, go, yep, done that, done that, done that, and the manual keeps you, in a sense. If you're in my position, I kind of always had a manual, kind of like a flow chart kind of manual, kind of. I think it was like, I forgot what it was called. It's been a long time since I've been in. I know you were just in, and you do your checkoffs, and it becomes second nature, and
Mhm.
that way when your job becomes second nature, you do the right thing every time.
Mhm.
And then the distractions that come in, you learn to deal with that. And of course, you've practiced that. And in some positions, if you make mistakes, people die.
Agreed. Agreed. Right. I mean, that's the important of
Mm-hmm.
taking those reps, right? Over and
Right.
over and over and over. It's not sexy. There's nothing sexy about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very arduous, boring work. But when it comes down to additional external stressors coming on, you're still staying focused on the mission. Like, I got to go. A football analogy would be, I got to go run down the field and win this game, right? And, Tom Brady kind of analogy, um, but it's because you took all those reps in practice over and over and
Right.
over and over
Mm-hmm.
again. That's why you're able to execute with all this stuff going on around you. You turn down the noise and just push forward and keep going.
And I'll say this, man, I hope this is not out of line, but I'm going to say it anyway. We just went through this big snowstorm up in the north. Many people, dozens and dozens of people passed away.
Mm-hmm.
I bet, I know of one lady that was in Charlotte with some preparedness knowledge from Prepping Academy, from the PrepperNet, from reading some of these books, with a little bit of knowledge, her life would not have, she could have saved her own life. I mean, she died of carbon monoxide poisoning, and it was
This,
because her tailpipe was covered with snow. And it was not, I mean, that's a simple thing that we learn that some people have never. I'm just saying that after the dozens of people's life, if you go and research what they died from, I would say, I don't know, a large percentage of them didn't have to pass away if they would have had skills or have thought through the situation of a big snowstorm.
yeah, there's the hypothermia element too when
Mm-hmm.
you're getting that cold and folks leaving their windows rolled up.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely don't do that, right? Keep the airflow going throughout the car. Otherwise the condensation builds up, you start sweating, and then
Yep.
ultimately your body gets cold and your body temperature goes down and bad things start happening to you real
Mm-hmm.
quickly.
Yeah, that's just some knowledge that people didn't have. I mean, I know might be too soon, but it's sad that that information is readily available, and that's what PrepperNet and Prepping Academy. We're going to talk. We're not always going to be this boring. Talking about me and my beliefs, or you, but we're gonna talk about some important issues that you and your family that need. And I would say, on the most part, this is going to be a family show that your
Mhm.
kids will be able to listen to us every now and then. Greg may let a word or two fly.
I'm still a sailor.
But it's a clean show, so the knowledge and information that we're going to be passing on, we hope that you guys share. We are at preppingacademy.com. I'm going to put that up so everybody can see that. But we have a website. Go, and it's called preppingacademy.com. Go in there. All our old shows are there. Go to your favorite podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, everything that you can think of, we're there. So whatever podcasts you're on, but make sure you subscribe. So every time that we release a new podcast, you'll get alert. It'll come up on your screen. Oh, the greatest, coolest guys ever just released another podcast. And then they go, well, maybe Prepping Academy did too. And then also, if you help us and give us a 5-star, don't give us 4, don't give us 3, give us 5-star. That helps us move up. And that way our message can get out to more people. I mean, if we had 1 million listeners, just think about how many people can get the information. We can't charge a listener money. That would be pretty cool. For every second you listen, you get to pay $5 now. but it will help the algorithm to get more people to listen to us. And so do that. Go to, on your podcast, subscribe, and join our, go to our website. I just shared the Instagram and Twitter. And so we'll be on all them. We'll be posting things. And any last words before we wrap this one up?
No, man. No, I think this is a good first kickoff. So no, I appreciate it. Happy to be here. Happy to keep getting after it. You want to close this out in prayer, or you want me to?
Yeah, I'll do the first one.
Yes, sir.
You're the next. Okay. Gracious Lord, we just thank you for this day, Lord. Lord, we love you, Lord. Lord, we ask you to prepare our minds and our hearts and soul for everything that you will put before us in the next few years, Lord. Lord, we pray that it's our responsibility to have the knowledge and to trust in you, Lord. So I want to pray for our listeners, Lord, that their minds will be open, their hearts will be filled, Lord, with you, and that we can just share the knowledge and share the word about being prepared. Being prepared, Lord, is a heart condition and a mind condition, Lord. And we thank you for all that you've done for us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Wow, that's a good first show, man. So we'll see you guys next week here on the Prepping Academy. I won't say any final words because that sounds bad, but you got any last things to say?
UncleBuck out. UncleBuck out.
UncleBuck out. That is good. Okay. See you guys.
You're listening to the Prepping Academy. The information you need before the world ends.